This is part 2 of expectancy violation theory. I'm Professor Barry Brennan, and this is for interpersonal communication class. I'm going to go straight to the PowerPoint, and we're going to continue our discussion. Okay, so I want to go back actually to where we just were. So I want us to be really clear on what we're looking at. So when we define when an expectancy violation, how we define that, occurs when another person's behavior falls outside the normative range is sufficiently deviant to be noticed. Okay, remember we talked about roles and the social part and the idiosyncratic part, which was about the roles that we play in life, which are our social roles, and then we have what we know about that person, the personal knowledge we have about that person. Both of those components need to be in place for a violation to occur, whether it's positive or negative. If you remember at the start of our conversation, I asked you when would a positive violation, what would an example of a positive violation be for you if someone violated if someone violated the expectation you had of that person? What would be a positive violation? So it has to be sufficiently deviant. You can't expect it. Really outside the norm. Okay. Sometimes people do this, you don't even notice. So some violations are received consciously and some are not. Some you're aware of and some you aren't. And the one I always like to think about before we even go into these is an example of a good example of a positive violation is your best friend makes a romantic overture toward you and expresses his or her sexual and romantic interest in you. And if you'd already had strong feelings for that person, that's a positive violation because friendship has boundaries, right? Of how far you're going to go. And we're not talking about friends with benefits. We're talking about friendship, right? People that you hang out with that's purely platonic and you have personal knowledge. So let's say even added to that, a better violation would be that person has been talking about how they never want to have another relationship ever again, and they're not generally romantic people at all. They don't even have, like, you wouldn't think of that your friend is having a romantic bone in his or her body. And one day he or she shows up at your house with roses, right? And candy. Like, how romantic is that? Or it's Valentine's Day and they do that for you and give you a card about love. So that's an example of a positive violation. Positive because you accept it in a positive way. Okay, that's the key. It has to be positive for you. You're the recipient of it. It has to be violating your norm. And it's positive because it makes you feel good. Got it? Okay, here we go. So, is it considered reward balance? So balance just means value. And I'm giving you the language of the theory. So that's why these are all these big words, enduring cognitions and all these different things. But this is the language of the theory. So balance means value. So if the positive, it's positive if it seems like it has something of value, right? There's a reward. Something is positive about it. The receiver perceives, I was just talking about, perceives a violation as something good. Like, yay, we're going to be more than friends. Or, wow, I do feel that way about you, right? That's a positive thing. Negative is when the receiver feels, the person who's being violated feels that they're receiving the violation, they feel like they've been betrayed, or somehow that their relationship, the trust in that relationship has diminished, right? They didn't see that coming, right? So that happened. It's like you could think of a person that you really trust. Let's say friendship. Friendship usually has these boundaries around you get close, you have intimacy, you don't have the problem with like sexual intimacy because that brings up other issues, and you just have that friend, someone you believe has your back all the time. And they've continued to be, and you know that about them. And let's say you're in a situation and you've never been competitive, but you're in a situation where you're competitive with each other, or that person shows a competitive face and they never have before. Okay, that would be like a violation, and you might feel less about that person. Okay, so it predicts that, this is what this theory does, predicts that violations are arousing. Remember I talked about the physiological part? So violations are physiological. You must have a physiological or psychological response to the violation, positively or negatively. The violation should cause more arousal and distraction than confirmations. What do they mean by that? What does that mean? It means that if you already think, let's say you and your friend, and you think that he or she might be more interested in you more than you thought, and then they show up with the roses on Valentine's Day, then that's a confirmation. But never in your wildest thoughts, remember, this is the person again receiving it. Never in your wildest dreams did you think that Joe or Jane was going to show up at your house with flowers and candy on Valentine's Day. Then that is a violation that's arousing. That's a true example of expectancy violations theory, how it works. Okay, so we clear on that? That's really important to know. It has to be arousing and not confirming. So confirmation is what you expect. So there's a two-step process, right? It's how you interpret it and the appraisal process. So your interpretation of the event, and then you decide what value, remember, positive or negative valence, you're going to give it the value. Not the person who's doing it, you're doing it. The receiver decides it. So this is a theory, it's about how the receiver responds to the violation. Okay. So I think you're clear on EVT, how it works. It has to arouse you. It has to be out of the normal range. There has to be a social role involved, and you have to know something about that person. So let's go back to Jim the postman. Let's say Jim the postman, instead of bringing mail to my house, he brings roses and candy and tells me he's in love with me. Okay, for me, that would be a negative violation because that's the last thing I want. I'm already married, happily married, right? So that would be a negative violation. I would feel like, where did he think I would go? Where did he get the idea that I was even interested? And that's what I would do. So here you are, EVT. All right, that's it for today, and I will see you later. You have a great day. Bye. Bye.